Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel True Stories. Today's story took place in Syria. Now this true story took place in the 70s. The country, at that time, its overall situation was weak. Therefore, people started to travel abroad to look for jobs, especially to Gulf countries, with the beginning of the emergence of oil and gas industry. During that period, it was not that easy. It was hard as there were numerous requirements for visa for people to travel. So the easiest way most of the people took was to enter the country, we would say, by walking. They used to cross the borders by walking. And of course, it was illegal. Now they walked through their countries to the other countries like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. Now, our first character is Abu Nawaf. Abu Nawaf was one of the people who got into Saudi Arabia during the 70s. And as soon as he arrived, he got busy into building himself and his future and pursuing his dream. Indeed, Abu Nawaf was clever and quick-witted, and he was able to collect a fortune within a span of time. It was not easy to get him in touch with his family, as the lack of telephone and electricity was common at that time. Not all the houses or all the areas and towns had electricity, or you would say way of communication. Therefore, he couldn't get in contact by phoning them. His intentions were to work hard enough and become prosperous and successful, and then only to return to his family and country. He decided to return to his country after 10 years. That means it was almost in the 80s. In the 80s, after he gained the wealth, so he decided to return home. He took a flight to his country and landed in Damascus. After 10 years, life and living got better in his country, Syria. But still, to get to his hometown, it took 700 kilometers, almost 700 kilometers, from the airport itself. Here he decided to take a taxi, as he was carrying loads of gifts and stuff. People usually take buses to reach these areas or towns because it's cheaper and better, and he can get a ride easily. But he decided, as he was carrying lots of stuff and especially money and gifts, he decided to take a taxi. He got a taxi and asked the taxi driver to take him to his hometown. The driver complained and he was like, "That's far. That's really far and it is difficult to get there." But he said and insisted that I'll pay you more than you want. But please do take me there. And the taxi driver, replied to him, "Well, I'll be taking 3,000 liras." And during the 80s, 3,000 was a lot. It was almost equal to a plane ticket, price of a plane ticket. And they agreed to it. He loaded his luggage into the taxi and left for his town. Before I could go further with the story, let me give you an idea of the other character here, Abid. His story was that he was a young man of 27 to 28 years. His father died and left 9 siblings, 5 girls and 4 boys. He was the only one who was carrying the responsibility of the whole family. He was working as a taxi driver, but whatever money he made couldn't cover up their expenses, and he had debts accumulated on him. This was one of the reasons to why he agreed on taking this person wherever and how far he wanted to go, as long as he was paying, because he was really in need. Now getting back to our story. As it was a long drive, they started chatting to entertain themselves. He asked Abu Nawaf from which country he had arrived and why his accent was different. Well, he explained that he had been working in Saudi Arabia for 10 years of his life, from the 70s to the 80s. And with good intentions, actually, he was sharing his experience with him and how he got into Saudi Arabia through walking and where he worked in car and water transport, how he disappeared from his family for 10 long years. As he was sharing his experience and talking about his wealth and the fortune he had made, here on the other hand, Abid was thinking about his life, his debts and responsibilities and all the hardship he had to face. Abid had been involved into lots of stuff in his life. At a very young age, he has taken responsibilities of something which was bigger than he could handle. Now, Abid had never been involved in any criminal activities, neither he had that type of mentality. But the circumstances he was in was far more difficult, which made him think of one. Evil thoughts started taking over him. He was in a battle between good and evil. He thought how he could exploit Abu Nawaf. If he kills him, people will come and search for him, and if he steals stuff from him, he will go and complain. After a while, he stopped the car and said, "Excuse me, I need to go to the toilet. I'll be right back." He went far off the car and was thinking and planning how he could get rid of him. So he thought he had never killed someone or attempted any crime whatsoever, especially someone innocent, and that's why he got back into the car and continued driving. But still, with evil thoughts in his mind, which was completely filled right now, he wanted the money so bad that he was thinking of doing it. Later, after 30 to 40 kilometers, he explained that he needs to stop the car again and wants to go to the toilet. He got down and again got engaged into evil thoughts. Abu Nawaf got suspicious upon looking at this man. He was confused and in a complex state. After few hours passed by and they were now in a desert area. It was dark and pitch black. This area, I would say, people rarely drove on this road, and during the night especially, human could be, like attacked by wild animals or get in contact with other dangers. Abid parked his car once again and asked Abu Nawaf to get down the car. Well, he didn't expect the situation and asked him why. Abid pleaded and said, "Please get down the car before I could commit any crime." He cried and he said, "I have stopped the car thrice and the only notion in my mind is to loot and get rid of you, which I don't want to, so please leave and get down." He also said that he was honest. He was trying to be honest that he was in a very bad mental state because of his financial situation and debt. But he also said that he asked God to forgive him for his evil thoughts and temper. He said, "Leave. I don't want to just kill you." Well, here, Abu Nawaf asked him to calm down and try to understand his condition. They got down the car and Abid explained that he was wholly and solely responsible for his big family and that his father has left behind. He also had debts, and taxi that he drew was on loan, and he also had rental debts. Again, Abu Nawaf was very calm and he said, "Let's talk about your debts," and started calculating with him. It turned out that he was 100,000 liras in debts, and he opened his bag. Abu Nawaf just opened his bag. He took out 100,000 liras and said, "Here you go. This is for you to pay back your debts. And instead of 3,000, which was supposed to be given by me to you, I'll be paying you 10,000. You don't need to kill me. You don't need to kill anyone. We don't need to slaughter each other. Just here you go. Here's the money." Abid was shocked. He felt strange towards at what he was listening and how calm Abu Nawaf was. He started shedding his tears and weeping. He literally collapsed to the fact that what he was up to and what happened. He knew that listening to the devil wouldn't have done any good. Abid here embraced Abu Nawaf and cried that, "I don't want your money." And he thought that he didn't deserve it, but he insisted. Therefore, he agreed only in one condition, that he would consider the money to be a loan and would return it in the near future. Abu Nawaf replied, whenever he could, he can return it, but if his affairs are not corrected, he could consider them as a gift. They got into the car and they reached to the town until 4 a.m. Here, Abid thanked Abu Nawaf for his kindness and generosity, and again promised that he will pay him back. Abu Nawaf welcomed him and asked him to enter the house and take some rest, eat something, and then he could leave. But he decided to return and thanked him again. Now, upon returning to his town, Abid was able to pay his debts. His friends interrogated from where he got the money. He was honest, and he told them the whole story of how he was about to commit a crime. and kill an innocent person, and how at that time he suffered a psychological crisis. But this man, a stranger, instead of being petrified, calmed him and decided to help him. But he will pay him back one day. He did say that. 5 years had passed by since this event had occurred. 5 years, and Abid now owned taxis instead of one. And he also lived a stable life. Once he was sitting and chatting with his best friend, and during the conversation his friend reminded him of the story he had been telling everyone from 5 years. And he said that, don't you think this is the right time to return the money to his rightful owner? He agreed and said, it is the right thing to do right now, and maybe this person would be in need after 5 years. So Abid now was blessed with everything, and the only thing he could imagine was going back and returning the money. His friend here accompanied him to the town. The world, of course, had changed, and the houses were bigger and modified, and they tried to guess the right house, because Abid, he couldn't remember, but he did make out which house it was, and he knocked at the door. A woman opened the door, and he inquired if he could meet Abu Nawaf. At first she said, who? Means Abu Nawaf who? He explained, the man here explained, that how he had been with him and how he had left him at the doorsteps of this house, and that this man was in Saudi Arabia and returned to Syria after 10 years. She replied that Abu Nawaf left for Saudi Arabia for 15 years now, and he had never returned ever since. And then he asked, how do you know Abu Nawaf? She said she was a sister, and she also said that before 5 years she had received gifts and other things from a man, but that her brother never came back. He sighed that he was the taxi driver who brought him from the airport at his house, and was very sure and confident. His friend gazed at him as if he got somewhat crazy and told him that, you were lying all this time. Did you actually steal the money from someone? Well, he swore by God. He insisted on meeting Abu Nawaf here. Now he met the wife of Abu Nawaf, and upon meeting he asked where Abu Nawaf was, and he got the same reply, that he left for 15 years for Saudi Arabia and never came back. Now it was kind of like this man lost his mind. Maybe he did meet someone, but he was lying of who he was. That specific person may have told that his name's Abu Nawaf, and he was not. Now they left and went back to their city. But after that day onwards, Abid was unable to sleep, and the only thing he could think was of Abu Nawaf. Even when he slept, it was just nightmares. It was filled with nightmares of someone asking him to find Abu Nawaf. He went to see his friend and reminded them of the story. His friends, all of them, that I did say the story which occurred. The dates and events match, but not the person. And that's impossible. Now, when he reminded his friends of the story that happened before 5 years, and that he had visited alongside with his friend, the wife and the sister who claimed that this man never came back, this was indeed a weird accident. One of his friends said that he knew someone who knew the mayor of their specific town, and he could ask if they knew Abu Nawaf, and they could give him the information and the address and get more of when did he arrive, or did he arrive before 5 years, to which his family members actually were denying. They just wanted to make sure and know the truth. They summoned Abu Nawaf's brother-in-law and started interrogating that how could he send money and gifts by a man or a stranger, something which included money and gold. But now, by now, that is, everyone agreed that there is a point. Why would, after 5 years, they were thinking that why would someone send money and precious gifts by the hand of a stranger? Abu Nawaf was missing, and this person was not a mere person with few family members. He was a part of a whole tribe. The mayor gave the information to this criminal security if this person had entered the country. And guess what? He did. They immediately informed Abid that he was right. Now something went wrong, and they were sure that something could have happened to him, that he disappeared. but this was for the criminal security to find out. Now, just to give you a small information about why am I calling the man Abu Nawaf. In Arab countries, most of the Arab countries I would say, Abu Nawaf is said to be the father of Nawaf, and Nawaf is the mother of Nawaf. Abu means father, or Ab, and means mother. So that's how they call it. Abu Nawaf is not a name. It's as if they're calling the father of Nawaf. Now getting back to our story. They arrested Nawaf, his sister, and her husband. They questioned them, but they refused as if they knew nothing. And instead they started blaming Abid here. They're saying that he was the one who was lying. They summoned Abid too and asked him that what was the exact luggage that he was carrying. And he explained that he was carrying whatever and the conversation between them. They denied. The sister and the brother-in-law said his wife, Nawaf, was the one who brought the things in or showed the gifts from her side. She was the one to receive the stuff from the man or from the stranger, I would say. Now, they started interrogating strictly that who was the man now? Who was the stranger? You should have seen his face or his name or taken any other info. So now it was her turn to answer to some questions. Well, of course, like any other criminal, she started refusing, but later, when she was tired and gave up, she collapsed and confessed. She was, of course, sobbing and weeping. This man, Abu Nawaf, who has spent his life and energy working hard, was for a woman who didn't deserve him. So what happened? What really happened was that Abu Nawaf did arrive at his home, but he found his wife with a stranger. He held them in the house, but his wife got against her husband and helped this man, who we would say Abaid, to get rid of her husband. He got a knife and stabbed Abu Nawaf till he died. Abaid here told the woman, or told Nawaf, that she shouldn't inform the police, or he could get rid of her too, or he could involve her. So she said that she will cooperate no matter what. Now, after she confessed and was arrested, she gave them the name of the man, Abaid, his full name, and where he lived. Now, the location of the body, they dug. There were only traces of the body, actually, and it was decomposed. And after the report from the forensic department arrived, it was clear that this body was of Abu Nawaf. The story is not over yet. Nawaf was sentenced to 15 years of prison, and Abaid was sentenced to life imprisonment. But this was not what the tribe of Abu Nawaf wanted. They wanted revenge. Here they decided to forgive the wife, Nawaf, and Abaid for the crime. The court agreed and they were released, Nawaf and Abaid, later. Just 2 days and they were released. The tribe who wanted to take the revenge murdered Nawaf and Abaid. And that's how they took their revenge successfully. The taxi driver Abid was in the sense of sadness, at the same time a sense of relief. The part of sadness was that how this man died and how he was actually planning to kill him, but because he felt the guilt, he didn't do so. But the part of relief was that if they didn't find the body, if he didn't come back, it would be like this person went to Saudi Arabia and never came back. They couldn't have known that this woman was involved in a crime. They couldn't have known that how unloyal she was. I would like to end the story with a quote of Sophocles. All men make mistakes, but a good man yields when he knows his course is wrong and repairs the evil. The only crime is pride. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.